two super important things happen in that Fed meeting today that I think a lot of people are missing, okay? And this is going to obviously change a lot about the economy, about the markets moving forward and things like that, okay? So Jerome Powell, I watched the whole, press conference and whatnot, and I thought this was one of two super important things. He says, I'm saying we would be comfortable cutting rates when we're comfortable cutting rates. And that won't be this year. I don't think it would be, okay? So basically, it looks like Jerome Powell is taking off the table the possibility or potential at all of cutting rates this year, okay? Now, you could see that one of two ways. The first way you could see that as is this is scary because what if the economy starts to weaken and things like that and he's not going to cut rates? You could see it that way. The second way you could see this is if this man is confident and the Fed's confident in saying we're not cutting rates this year, then they're probably pretty darn confident that the economy is going to hold up at least this year, right? We could talk about next year and the year after and those sorts of things, but at least for the rest of this year, he's very confident. I don't think that's a crazy assumption considering we only have 5 months roughly left in the year and considering how low unemployment is, right? I mean, even if unemployment started to tick up, it's still going to be historically ridiculously low, right? So from that standpoint, I can kind of understand him taking that viewpoint. Now, they obviously raised interest rates today. I don't agree with that personally. If I was running the Fed, I would be either stagnating interest rates or I would be considering cutting. Okay, that's me personally. I don't run the Fed. That's their job. But I think the longer you obviously keep rates in an elevated place, especially when the economy is not used to it, the more likely those Fed lags will eventually catch up, right? And so that is something we have to take into account that eventually that can happen, okay? But the second thing was even more important, in my personal opinion, about what happened here today when it came to the Federal Reserve, okay? And you saw the market jumping around huge. Here's what happened. Fed Chair Powell said the central bank could raise rates again or hold them steady in September depending upon new economic data. He says, I would say it's certainly possible that we will raise rates again at the September meeting if data warrant it. And I would also say it's possible that we would choose to hold steady. And we're going to be making careful assessments. I said meeting by meeting. And he talks about, when he was talking in the press conference about we get 2 more CPI reports, we get 2 more jobs reports to kind of make our decisions based upon that. So he's, once again, not even talking about cutting. The only reason that cutting even came in is because somebody asked him a question specifically about that, so we had to address it. So the Fed, we know for basically the rest of this year, they're only considering raising or they're only considering staying steady, right? Which once again, in my personal opinion, it's the wrong decision to make. They should be either considering steady or cutting, my personal opinion. So that's where the Fed's at, right? And the worry is the Fed goes too far, too long, right? We know the economy is a big giant that once it gets moving one direction, up or down, is a hard baby to flip back the other way, and it takes months and many times years to get that baby back, going in the right direction. So that's a big worry from my standpoint, is that they keep rates too high for too long. The economy starts to weaken. They don't react fast enough, right? And next thing you know, all of a sudden things start to get bad in 2024 and they're trying all of a sudden freaking out, cutting rates. But by that point in time, it's too late. The dominoes are falling the wrong way and you can't kind of turn the thing around fast enough. And next thing you know, you got a mess to clean up. And next thing you know, the money printer's going again, right? Which ends you back up in the same bad scenario you didn't want to be in the first place. So that's kind of my thoughts on the whole situation. We'll see what happens. And also, you don't know what the Fed's telling the truth about versus what they're, you can say fibbing about or lying about and those sorts of things. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But that's what's going on there. The bottom line is, for everybody that's watching this at home, always remember, the longer the Fed keeps rates at an elevated place, the more risk it has to the economy, okay? And I can't not mention this. The one good thing I will say about rates being at an elevated place right now is if you've got money in treasuries, if you've got money in savings accounts, you're making really good returns for the first time in like 15, 20 years. You're able to get 4 or 5% on your money, which is sweet. So I will say that's the one good thing that is awesome, is for the people that have money, like they're really being helped out by the situation. Unfortunately, who's not? People that don't have money, right? Because they don't have the sort of money around to get that 4 to 5% on treasuries and savings accounts and things like that. But if they want to go buy something like a new car, they're having to pay these insane interest rates, right? So that's where you get into some real pickles. And that's where we're in an economy right now that it's actually a pretty good economy. If you're somebody that makes good money, let's say you're a six-figure earner, make over $100,000 a year, like this is kind of perfect for you. If you got money, you're loving this. But if you're somebody that's in a poor financial situation, like a lot of these things aren't benefiting you as much as you might hope, right? Now, there's a significant opportunity I see in this market, okay? And I wouldn't be surprised if this stock shoots higher in a pretty significant way. And that stock is Mattel, okay? So Mattel's reporting earnings tomorrow. Now, it's interesting because this stock hasn't gone up nearly as much as I would have assumed, considering their business model just fundamentally changed in a pretty epic way for the better forever. And I think if you had to say, what's one of the stocks that's seen the most upside for the next 12 to 18 months, I mean, actually, I've looked into this quite deeply, and Mattel's quite a story here, okay? If you didn't know, there's this Barbie movie came out, okay? Which, obviously, Mattel owns the rights to Barbie. Now, this movie's doing ridiculous numbers. I mean, absolutely ridiculous numbers. Every single day at the movies. I mean, even, this is U.S. domestic box office, right? Monday, they did $26 million. Like, are you kidding me? On a Monday? Like, it's ridiculous. This movie is just, I mean, this is one of those movies that's going to do probably $1 billion+ global, if not well over $1 billion. It's extraordinary. And so this is going to end up being likely one of the biggest movies we've ever seen at the box office in terms of numbers. And so Mattel's going to be in this insane situation now where they're going to be able to obviously license a lot of different Barbie-related things. And I've even seen licenses in terms of like coffee shops doing stuff and fast food places and all types of stuff. And so this is going to get very, very intriguing. But what Mattel just proved out here is they had the ability to essentially do a movie, do it really well, and then they're going to be able to make a sick amount of money on the backside from either licensing things or selling, in this situation, obviously Barbie dolls, right? And they own a lot of different brands. And so Barbie doll sales are going to be ridiculous. Like Target, Walmart, Amazon, all these guys, all the international retailers are going to be trampling over themselves to order as many Barbie dolls as possible for the next several years. Because when you launch a movie this big, it's not just a one-year help. It's going to be a multi-year help when it comes to kind of the toys that are sold around that. Because this movie, will be seen on the streaming platforms and everything like that for years to go in the future. And so, nonetheless, Mattel's kind of doing a little bit of what Disney's done in the past, right? It's kind of like a little bit of a stolen business model where Mattel owns several great brands. From my understanding, they're going to come out with a Hot Wheels movie in 2025. We'll see how that does. I don't know. I doubt it's going to do as good as Barbie, but I mean, this is going to be one of the top movies ever in terms of sales numbers. So how can you do, that well, right? But, Disney's always been famous for being able to come out with a huge movie, very successful, and then be able to make ridiculous amounts of licensing money off that, right? And even be able to include some of their rides at their theme parks and things like that. And so with Mattel here, it looks like they're just going to have a little bit more of an asset-light strategy than a Disney without all the baggage that you get with Disney. Because if you buy Disney, we know you're getting so much baggage that comes with it. Massive debt loads. You're getting a lot of businesses that Disney doesn't even want to be part of anymore. Bob Iger wants out of many of these businesses. You're getting a mess if you buy Disney. Mattel is just seen as kind of like the creme de la creme of what Disney has. They're going to be seen as like, this is a perfect stock. And so I think there's going to be a flood of money probably to this stock over this next 12 to 18 months. We'll see how it all plays out. It's just, I put the pieces together and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is probably the most underrated story in the stock market right now that I think people are going to catch on to. And, there's always like something around every November, December, everybody talks about, what are the top toys this year? You know what the top toy is going to be this year? Barbie. You know what the top Halloween costume is going to be this year? Barbie, Ken. That's going to be the top, man. And so, nonetheless, folks, we'll see how it all shakes out. That's just one of those opportunities.